welcome to episode 18 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
This week, we are going to be talking about Immortal Engines, the documentary about Andre the Giant on HBO, the new movie Into the SpiderVerse, and then some updates on a live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movie and Kingdom Hearts 3. But first, Christian, you saw Immortal Engines this week. Did you like it?
I did. So I got a lot more into it than I really expected to. I went into it with very low expectations, and it surprised me. I enjoyed it.
So what is the basic premise of Immortal Engines? I've seen some previews for it. It looks visually interesting, but I don't actually know what it's about.
It is. So it's like post-apocalyptic, I guess you would say. It's a world where there was a war that took place in a single hour, and it escalated to like beyond nuclear, and they like wiped out North America completely. And so this takes place in Europe. And as a result of the war, like the world has changed, like geologically, like the continents are different than they used to be. And the cities were all rebuilt on wheels so that they can kind of roll across the landscape. And I guess they would be harder to attack since they were mobile. But then now the big cities eat the smaller cities and like steal their resources.
So the cities, like, they open up and take them in and you capture them, or how does that work, the eating part?
Yeah, basically. Like the main city you see in this one is London, and it's kind of rolling across mainland Europe, eating smaller cities. And so like the front of it opens and it pulls them in with basically like giant spear guns. It pulls the other city in, and then they take all the people and incorporate them into the population, and then they rip the other city apart and use it for like resources and parts.
I think we talked about this briefly last week. This is based on a young adult book series, right?
Yeah, there's a few of them, 3 or 4. And then I think other authors started jumping on and like writing other stories in this world. So I had a hard time actually getting a count of how many books are in this series.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely sounds like a book series, and I'm really intrigued about how they translate moving cities on wheels, like whole cities on wheels, to the big screen.
Yeah, like the premise is silly for sure. Like the idea that you could take something the size of London and put it on wheels and let it drive across the landscape is bizarre beyond anything. But if you're able to suspend your disbelief a little bit, this movie is a lot more fun than I was originally expecting it to be.
So who stars in this?
The lead is a girl named Hera Hilmar. She hasn't been in much, but she was pretty good in this. The big name in it is Hugo Weaving, who is always a bad guy, and in classic form is a bad guy again in this. There aren't a whole lot of other names, big names associated with it anyway. Stephen Lang plays a character who's mostly CG the whole time. He's been in a few things. He was the bad guy in the Avatar movie, the alien Avatar, not The Last Airbender. And he was actually pretty good. Like his character was probably the most interesting out of any of them. He plays like I don't really know what they are. They're like undead zombies / robots. That's the one thing I will say. This movie made me want to read the book series a little bit, just to get a little more of like the world building backstory and find out more about what's going on in this world.
It sounds really interesting. I may see this week, or I'm going to see Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's going to entirely depend what's playing at my movie theater back home when I go see my parents. So this might be something I end up seeing, and it sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I saw the preview the first time, and I was really into it. And then the more previews that came out, I was kind of like, I don't know. It looks kind of dumb. But I was glad I watched it. It was a fun movie. There are some like easy to fix plot hole kind of things like there are in a lot of these kind of movies. Like there's a big portion of the movie where it's a big deal that she can't really walk. She gets injured and she has difficulty even supporting her own weight. And within minutes, she's running at full speed and jumping from building to building. And that was a little And there's also a very lazy twist towards the end that I won't say anything else about that kind of took me out of it. But other than that, I was really happy with this. I would definitely recommend it.
And you sound like you're a little bit different. It looks like it has a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, but you seem to be high on it. Why do you think you like it more than the Rotten Tomato crowds did?
I don't know. I feel like it definitely deserves more than 28%. Like, I wouldn't put it super high because, like I said, it is kind of silly, but I don't know. I guess maybe I just got more sucked into it than other people did. Maybe I was in the right mood for it or what, but yeah, like I was actually in the theater by myself. I went and watched the Thursday night premiere and nobody else came. So I was in there and I was like cheering when the one girl did this cool move, and I was into it.
Well, good. Do you know how it fared in the box office money wise?
It made $7.5 million this weekend. It did just come out this weekend, so that's not bad for its opening. I'm not sure what its budget was, but it was ranked 5th for the week, which isn't terrible. It was visually very cool, but I feel like I also watched SpiderMan SpiderVerse this weekend, and that one was so much more visually stunning. I feel like it's kind of dulled in comparison.
And also, I don't think Immortal Engines has really had a huge advertising budget, at least in the area where I live, because I've seen 1 or 2 previews for it outside of the movie theater. I have not actually seen much about it, so I'm not that surprised that it's only 5th place in the box office this weekend.
Yeah, that's true. I also, besides just being at work here, I haven't seen much advertising out in the world about it. Yeah, it was directed by Christian Rivers, who I've never heard of.
The director only has 1 movie under his belt, and he has more movies under his belt, but nothing huge. He was like a visual effects guy for a lot of the stuff. It looks like Mortal Engines looks like it's his first directorial debut.
Yeah, well, that makes sense for him to be a visual effects guy. He definitely brought some of that to this.
Yeah, he worked with Peter Jackson for the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies and King Kong. So it looks like it's a Peter Jackson guy.
Yeah, well, he did a pretty good job on this because I'm looking at his IMDb now, and he has 1 movie and 1 short before this that he directed, and I haven't heard of either of them. So for his first major release, going to number 5, that's not bad.
This week, I watched the HBO Andre the Giant documentary, and you guys might have heard of this. It was released back in April of 2018, and its producer was Bill Simmons, who is pretty popular in the at least Boston sports world, and I think he's somewhat known in the sports world. He's a basketball guy. He used to be a big part of Grantland that shut down, and now he does The Ringer. But he produced this, and usually Bill Simmons is hit or miss with me, but I really enjoyed this documentary about Andre the Giant. Did you ever watch wrestling, Christian?
I did not know.
See, I really liked wrestling when I grew up, and Andre the Giant was a little bit before my time. He died in 1993 at the age of 46, so I was pretty young at the time he died. So his heyday was the 70s and 80s before I was born. And this documentary was an awesome way to see how wrestling was back then, and really his effect on essentially centralizing wrestling into what was then the WWF, now the WWE. I'm assuming you know who Andre the Giant is.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's a household name. So I think what the public, if you didn't watch wrestling, you probably know him from The Princess's Bride.
Absolutely, yep.
And that's actually towards the end of his career where he's big and lumbering. But when he was younger, you see some really awesome early footage of when he's younger and pictures with him and his family. Andre was born in France, originally a small town outside of Paris. And the issues he had hit him when he was 14. So you see him when he used to be a normal sized person, then he gets huge, but he used to be skinny and a really mobile wrestler. And it's insane to see just how much he's changed over the years. I mean, he was not that old when he died. He was 46. You know, this documentary is interesting. They talked to some old wrestlers, and the big thing you really picked up from was Andre was really strong because he had this issue with him where he just produced a lot of extra growth hormones. He was insanely strong, and people, he would do whatever he wanted in the ring. So, no one could really command him what to do. And he had just a crazy undefeated streak. I don't think he had ever lost until one of his final wrestling matches with Hulk Hogan when he passed the torch onto him. But the other thing I just want to point out is he was a huge drinker. They said on average he would drink either a case of beer or a case of wine just to warm up for his night of drinking.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, Ric Flair is interviewed in this, and he says he was there when Andre drank 106 beers. And It's just like an insane amount. In his prime, before he started shrinking a little bit, he was, 7'1". They built him at 7'4", so he was between 7'1", 7'4". He weighed close to 500 pounds. I mean, he passed out in a hotel lobby in one of the stories, and people just could not move him because of how big he is. The most interesting thing I think about this documentary was you actually see Andre the Giant as a human being in this, where wrestling in the 80s, which, no one breaks character. You're always supposed to be, this person in public. You actually get to see how he was behind the scenes. It's interesting because he was such a big guy and everyone noticed him. It really affected his normal life. He had a daughter who he wasn't ever really able to connect with. He lived in a secluded area in North Carolina where he could just kind of be himself, where people didn't stare at him. He didn't really like that all the time, being noticed. And you just feel bad for the guy too. I mean, he was obviously very famous, but wrestlers back then were not making the money they are now. I'm sure he was pretty well off, but the toll it took on his body, in this documentary, they kind of gloss over it. It seemed like his death may have actually been preventable. The doctors found out, and he had never been diagnosed with his issue. He just thought he was really big until he hurt his ankle. And he said, no, I have to, do my job and whatnot. I'm not going to get any treatment for this because I might lose my job if I do it. The disease is what ultimately killed him because it enlarged his heart and everything, and it just gave out on him. He was just too big. So I think that's one of the most sad parts is maybe if he felt better about retiring at a younger age, he could still be, maybe not still be alive, but he could have lived longer than age 46.
Yeah, I didn't realize he had died that young.
It seemed like everyone who they interviewed really liked him. And surprisingly, Vince McMahon even teared up in this interview. I'm not a huge Vince McMahon fan. I think his monopoly on wrestling has generally hurt the industry, and I don't think he's the best at actually booking things. I think he's kind of a robot, but you could actually tell he had genuine emotion and felt sorrow about losing Andre. And that I think speaks volumes to how well liked he was in that industry.
Yeah, I only really ever knew him from Princess Bride. I think I was kind of peripherally aware that he was a wrestler once upon a time, but yeah, I really only knew him from that one role. And
you know what? One of the most insightful parts of the documentary is they interview his castmates, and the guy who played the main character in Princess Bride. He still looks crazy young. I don't know what he's done to himself. It doesn't look like he's aged since the movie. But they interview him. Rob Reiner was the director, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Him and Billy Crystal, they all interviewed them, and they're saying, we thought getting Andre to act would be the hardest part, but his body was in such bad shape in the filming of that. The hardest parts they had was actually the wrestling portions he was in. And they had to work around that. And they said the reason they thought he drank so much was because he was just in a lot of pain towards the end of his life.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm going to have to watch this documentary. It sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, if you have HBO Go or whatever, it's an hour and a half long. I think it's really good. I'm huge into watching documentaries about older wrestlers, and I used to watch them on Netflix until WWE created their own network, so now I can't watch them anymore because all of them are there. This week, SpiderMan Into the SpiderVerse was released, and both Christian and I actually saw it. Christian, what were your thoughts on it?
So, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Excluding Infinity War, this was my favorite movie of the year.
Wow, that's a high praise for this.
Yeah, I loved it. It was incredible.
So if you guys don't know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is basically the origin story of the Miles Morales version of Spider-Man. I don't think it actually follows the comics to the T. I never read the beginning portions of the Miles Morales story. I know that he started in the Ultimate Universe, and in that universe, his Peter Parker had died, and he took over the mantle, and I knew there were some things with that, but I've never actually read his run of it. But I did read what I think was the original portion of Into the Spider-Verse that was part of the new Infinity War comic run from like 2016. They had all the same characters and stuff. So this was not a one-to-one version of what I've read of Into the Spider-Verse or whatever, the Spider-Verse crossover with all these guys. But still, I agree with you. I think it was really well done. Yeah,
I mentioned earlier that it was just visually stunning. Like I was blown away by the visuals, by the music, by the voice actors. the story. It was just everything about it. I really can't say enough in support of it.
I first heard about this was they did a teaser for it in Venom. I originally didn't like the visuals. I was thrown off by them, but after watching the movie, I think they work 100 times better. But I've talked to some people who have not wanted to see it because they think the visuals don't look good, which is, I think, what happens when you decide to go in such a stylized way. But I think if they sat down and watched it, they would actually enjoy it.
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, if that's the only thing stopping you, give it a chance. It's styled in a way that it's like a blending of being animated and being a comic book. And I think they did a remarkable job finding that middle ground.
Oh, I agree. And especially when you see some of the still shots, you have the words coming up on the screen, you have the thought bubbles, or even some of the color choices where when you have some of the older comics like this noir Spider-Man, you would see the dots that would make up the colors on him instead of just being one solid color. It definitely does the comic book thing great. And it actually reminded me a little bit of Scott Pilgrim, the movie Scott Pilgrim, where they use some of that. But the way they do it makes it seem way more like a comic book than what the Scott Pilgrim movie did.
Yeah, and I think they had a little more freedom with this too, because Scott Pilgrim was largely a live action movie that they were trying to put like the comic book elements into. And they were fairly successful with that. It looked cool. But SpiderVerse is all the way animated. And so I think you have a lot more freedom with what you're able to do with blending the mediums like that.
And, maybe this is just me, but at the end, when they're in the particle collider or whatever it was, they had all the different colors flashing. I was just sitting there when I was watching it wondering if someone would have a seizure in it like the old Pokemon cartoons.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely I haven't heard anything about it. There was a movie, Slender Man, came out a few months ago, and we actually had to put signs up at the theater that there were heavy flashing images because somebody actually had a seizure somewhere in the country. But I haven't heard anything about it for Spider-Man yet, so hopefully it'll be okay. That sequence at the end was unreal. Just this sheer amount of visual information flying around was incredible.
Oh, it was insane. It was a crazy, awesome final set piece.
But yeah, Jake Johnson plays the kind of hobo Peter Parker, down on his luck. Life's beat him up a little bit, and I thought he was perfect for that role. I know him from playing Nick in New Girl, and he's largely the same character. He plays it well.
I don't know if he's my favorite one, but I thought he was the most fun of the Spider-Man, or I guess the Spider people. And yeah, he's on the New Girl, and I was like, man, this is just, oh my gosh. After he talks about, Mary Jane leaving him and stuff, and just the whole sequence of him explaining his life in an upbeat way, but then them actually showing the visuals, I thought was comedically very funny.
Yeah, everybody did a really, really good job with this. Did you recognize the original Peter Parker? Did you recognize the voice?
I did not. I was trying to figure it out, but I haven't looked it up either.
I was sitting there listening to it, and it took me a little while, but then I was like, that's Chris Pine.
Was that really?
It was. I was in the back row of the theater, so no one's behind me. I had to pull my phone out and Google it to make sure. But yeah, it was Chris Pine. I was surprised because I hadn't seen his name attached to the project anywhere.
And so, for our listeners who don't know, the Spider people in this, there's the old down on his luck Peter Parker. There's Miles Morales. There's Spider-Gwen. There's Spider-Ham. There's a noir Spider-Man, and then there's, I think the weirdest choice, I have no idea where this was based on, was the Japanese schoolgirl who had a spider robot.
Yeah, a psychic spider who lives in her father's robot.
Yeah, and then some of them have some big names attached to them, like Spider-Ham is John Mulaney, right? And then the noir Spider-Man, I think the breakout star with just random one-liners was Nick Cage playing him.
Yeah, his comment with the Rubik's Cube was what, if not my favorite line of the movie, definitely probably top 3. Although the response to Spider-Ham's Porky the Pig comment was also, that might have been actually my favorite line.
Yeah, that was a good one. Oh man, it kind of reminds me of a cleaner Deadpool to a certain extent, because Spider-Man is a wisecracking, he's a wisecracker and stuff. So that was good.
Yeah, that was definitely a fourth wall break, nod to the audience kind of thing.
I actually read this article. I meant to send it to you, but I forgot. But apparently, like, they had Nick Cage record 100 more lines than they actually put in the movie just because they thought it was funny listening to Nick Cage say stuff in 1940s lingo.
Yeah, when he was fighting and he was throwing out all those like ridiculous comments, like he called somebody a turtle slapper, I think. Like I was loving it.
I cannot believe this movie was made. I think it's going to be extremely successful for Sony. In the U.S. domestically, they made $35.5 million their first weekend. Worldwide, $56.4 million, and their budget was $90 million. So I mean, I think they're going to blow past their budget on this. I think this is going to be really successful.
Oh yeah, they're well on their way. Like for just this being the opening weekend, and now we're going into the holiday. Like they're definitely gonna make their money at plus.
And we were talking about the stylization of this looking like a comic book. I love how they styled the Kingpin in this, who is the primary bad guy. Every time he's on scene, some of this stuff, they just have him taking up 3/4 of the screen of just black. He's huge. I think it's a great way to use characters to visually, he's larger than life fighting a tiny teenage Miles Morales.
Yeah, the character design was all so very well done.
My only real complaint story-wise in this was, maybe spoiler warning on this one here, but my only complaint was, for the most part of the movie, Miles is bumbling and, relatively incompetent because he's a new Spider-Man. And then all of a sudden at the end, he's great at what he's doing. I think the transformation was just a little bit too quick. It's something I knew was going to happen, but it happened so quickly. I felt like it was a little bit jarring. Yeah,
I would agree with that. It's something that I didn't notice kind of in the moment. I was more caught up in the it's go time kind of like mood. But yeah, when you mention it, he does definitely snap from like completely untrained and unexperienced to yes, I can do everything all of a sudden.
Yeah, but that's my only real complaint. Otherwise, awesome movie, and I think you guys should definitely check it out. It has a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, and I think it deserves it. It's good.
Yeah, I obviously really agree. It was funny in all the right moments. It was touching in all the right moments. It was epic in all the right moments. They did a perfect job with it.
And I guess you had briefly touched on it, but the music also really well done. I really like the music on this one as well, too.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and this week in video game news, first up, Sonic the Hedgehog is getting a live-action movie, which has been out there for a while, but they recently have released 2 of the posters for the movie, and they are things of nightmares. Have you gotten a chance to see them, Christian?
Unfortunately have, and Stuff of Nightmares is really quite accurate.
So one of them is it's a black poster with an outline of Sonic, so you don't actually see his features, which I'm really, really interested how they're going to do his eyes. But Sonic has human legs and feet and is furry and looks nothing really like a hedgehog.
Yeah, it's wildly upsetting.
And the other one is, I think he's sitting on top of the Golden Gate Bridge, but it's from his perspective. So again, you just see his weirdly human legs and his tennis shoes. And it's just one of those things where it's who okayed this design? Fans of Sonic were ripping into this design, and the only people who are going to see a live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movie are the people who have been fans of that series since the 90s or the 2000s, You're not getting someone who's never seen or really paid attention to anything about Sonic to see that movie with that character.
Yeah, I cannot... I can't wrap my brain around these images that I've seen.
No, so I read a little bit of an interview with at least the director, someone involved with it. I don't know about the design, but the movie itself. And I guess the studio pushed for him to be furry and not the guys who are actually creating, because the hedgehog has quills and stuff. They're not hairy animals. But I think they mentioned something about the Detective Pikachu movie came out and they're like, oh, furry Pikachu works. We're going furry human Sonic for this one.
Yeah, it's very unpleasant.
Do you think you're going to see this movie?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I watch just about anything. I'm sure I'll watch this too. But yeah, I'll wait to see if we get any more pictures coming out soon, because Yeah, the shot of him on the Golden Gate Bridge and you just see his legs and feet it's not great. And also, is this then, are we to understand that this is set on Earth, like in San Francisco?
I mean, isn't one of the Sonic 06 or no, it's Sonic 06, the Sonic on the Dreamcast, one of them, I think he snowboards through San Francisco streets or something. Honestly, these posters to me look like someone's DeviantArt account where they're like, this is the ultra realistic version of Sonic. You know, and people are like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Not an actual studio production that they're putting millions upon millions of dollars into.
Yeah, it looks wild.
This movie, I'm calling it right now, is going to be a flop.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, just from these two images alone, like this is not going to be a good movie.
I don't know what people are thinking. Number one, who thought a live action Sonic would be good right now?
That's exactly what I said. The first time I heard this, the first time I saw this on our upcoming attraction sheet, the first words out of my mouth were, who asked for this? Sonic
has a very devoted fan base. I will give the series that. This is not a new series. They're not generating a lot of hype for it. And this is, I think, a crucial stumbling block right now with a poster snafu where everyone's just making fun of your movie before they see a trailer for it.
Yeah. So I have to ask, because I just looked, do you know anyone who's attached to this movie cast-wise?
No, I didn't even know this movie was coming out until they put the poster, and then I was aghast that this was a real thing.
So I had not thought, for some reason, I don't know why, I had not thought to look up this on IMDb until this very moment. So this is me finding out right now. Sonic the Hedgehog is played by Ben Schwartz, who most people would know as being John Ralphio from Parks and Recreation. Dr. Robotnik is played by Jim Carrey. Also in this movie as somebody named Tom is James Marsden, who was the original Cyclops in the X-Men movies.
Man.
So that's three fairly big names attached to this nightmare film. I want Sonic to just be John Ralphio.
It's just John Ralphio painted blue.
You know, like, hey, do you want to get run over? Because I know a guy.
Yeah. It's in the Parks and Rec universe. It's set in other video game news, there's two new pieces of information about Kingdom Hearts 3. One, a limited edition PS4 Pro was announced with it, and the second, more serious issue is the game has actually been leaked. So number one, did you get a chance to check out that PS4 Pro, Christian?
I did. It looks very nice.
Yeah, I don't often want to get limited edition systems, but I saw it 2 hours after it was released and went to look at the pre-orders and they sold out. I was so sad because it's a good-looking PS4.
It really is.
If you had the money, would you buy it right now?
Yeah, probably. Like, there's better things because it was what, $400?
$400,
like
which is the price of a PS4 Pro, so it's not a premium markup. But if you had pre-ordered it, it was $399.
Like there's certainly better things that I would like to spend $400 on, but like if I lived a life where I could just kind of be like, yeah, it's just $400, yeah, I would buy this for sure.
Yeah, what annoys me is this was up for 3 hours, had sold out. And then it's, people are selling their pre-orders on eBay for $800, $900. That just annoys me that scalpers get this and people who are actual fans aren't able to get their hands on it at a reasonable price.
Yeah, that is not great.
But in the more serious news, so the game leaked and the director of the game has implored people not to share spoilers with it or at least give people heads up of it. What looks like happened is somewhere along the distribution line, someone got hold of 10 copies of the Xbox One version of the game and was selling them on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh my God.
And they were verified real. He was selling for, I think, $100 or something like that. But since then, they have said they found where the leaker had come from. I don't know if the guy who was selling it got in any trouble, but it has been closed. But I think that information is now out there on the internet if you want to look up spoilers. But for most people, it seems like you should just wait till the game actually comes out and actually purchase it if you're a fan of it.
Yeah, that seems to be largely the response that I've seen is people kind of saying, we waited God knows how many years. We can wait another 30 days.
Right. It's been 15 years, 13 years since the second Kingdom Hearts came out.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I remember when this happened with Game of Thrones last season, people were watching like the episodes a week early, and I was like, nah, I could wait a week.
It's one thing, I guess, if someone's going to do that, whatever, it's on them. But for most people, don't share the spoilers, because a lot of people really don't want to have this game spoiled for them, because this is something a lot of people grew up with. And same with Game of Thrones. It's been, how many seasons they have now? 8. Like, people grow up with that stuff. They don't want to have it spoiled because someone else saw it earlier than it was even released,
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. So even I saw that Tetsuya Nomura, the creator, was out there saying like, please don't do this, don't share them, don't read them. And I was like, I could go hunting for them if I want, but I don't really want.
Yeah, in the Kingdom Hearts subreddit, which I know a lot of people get their information from, they said they're going to have a harsh stance on it. If you post it, it's getting banned, blocked, you're banned, that kind of stuff. So it's good to see where information, people aren't perusing that Reddit thinking they're going to get the game spoiled for them. So it's good that the mods are at least keeping up on that, because unintentionally you can run into that stuff too if people are putting it out there.
Yeah, which is the worst. Like, it would be... It's one thing if you're actively going out seeking it and then you spoil it for yourself, that's on you. But like, to just stumble upon like the end of a game that would frustrate the hell out of me.
So this week, this is a little bit different from our normal topics, but it's interesting nonetheless. Christian, you found an article about a shortage of magazine paper going on. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's something that I wanted to just bring up very briefly, if for no other reason than it's not something that people talk about very often. So there is kind of a global shortage right now in book and magazine paper, and it's starting to like affect print deadlines and things. So the price of books is going to be going up in the next year or so because of this, and you might see delays. Like, I pre-ordered a collector's edition of the Sanderson books. He puts a collectible leather-bound edition every 10-year anniversary in December. And so the third Mistborn is this year, and I pre-ordered it. And then we just got an update this week that it wasn't going to ship in time for Christmas, and we probably wouldn't get it until late January because the publishing company just doesn't have the paper to make it right now.
Yeah, and this is crazy because I've not heard of this at all until you sent me that link. But it makes somewhat sense, I guess, because the magazine and print industry is slowly dying. But what the article was saying was everyone had projected that the print industry would be dying much quicker than it actually is. So they decreased their ability to produce it while demand actually remained relatively high. So it's somewhat self-inflicted.
Yeah, and it's also it's not just a matter of deciding to kind of throw the publishing companies to the wind, but it's a change in priority, where there was a backlash against plastic this year and in the past few years, but especially this year with like straws becoming a mainstream complaint. And so the paper industry saw that they could make better money and quicker money making low quality paper packaging to replace plastic packaging. And so they deprioritized the publishing industry.
Yeah, and it's sad. I still like getting magazines every once in a while. I actually bought one this year. It's more of a niche thing. I'm just going to give it a shout out. The magazine's called A Profound Waste of Time. It's a not super deep dive, but it's much more of a deeper dive into the video game industry than you normally see in video game magazines. There's a really good article in there about the voice actor who does the Chloe in Life is Strange. They go into the art of Shovel Knight. All the art in it is custom art. It's really awesome. But I just went and checked it out. It's not on magazine paper. It's on a different style. So I wonder if they had that affect them or not. But I think we're going to start seeing magazines on different styles of paper. It said.
Yeah, people are talking about moving to basically alternative printing methods, hemp paper, or just moving to ebooks in general. And there might be a shift coming here in just, and it's not to say that it'll end up affecting anyone. Like I said, this has kind of all been happening behind the scenes with no one really knowing about it, which is why I wanted to mention it, because I found it interesting. So I doubt that any consumers will really see that much of a shift, but the industry as a whole might have to start dealing with where they're going to prioritize spending their money. I guess the only other thing I'll say is that the person who wrote the article wanted to emphasize that we're not running out of trees It's just about how these businesses are making their business decisions. But we're definitely not running out of trees to make paper. We're just turning paper into other things.
All right, and now it's time for our Amazon review game. So a quick refresher on the rules. This week, I have chosen a movie for Christian to guess. I will be reading a 5-star review from Amazon. Christian will get 2 yes or no questions to help him figure out what it is. I will then read another review from Amazon that is 5 stars. Christian will get 2 more yes or no questions, and then I can read 1 more 5-star review. Are you ready, Christian?
Let's do it.
This first review is titled Vroom Vroom and is in all caps.
Oh, boy.
Before watching this movie, I used to type like a normal person, and then I watched this, and now I can only type in all caps. I barely has time for punctuation, and I cannot check my spelling errors. Now in my head, 24/7, I hear revving engines and dun 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 music in my head. This movie will not only knock your socks off, it will light them on fire and blow them up. This movie is the most metal. This movie has so much testosterone that I feel like a young boy reaching puberty every time I watch it. I am a grown woman.
Who? Oh, man. All right. Does this movie feature a large cast?
Can I get clarification on what you mean by a large cast?
Is it a team of people?
No, I'm going to say it is not. I would not consider them a team. No, this is a movie about a team. At least the heroes, or whatever, the protagonists.
Is this movie live action?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to need another review.
Okay. As far as action adrenaline films go, this movie is as good as it gets. The action is mostly practical and as good as it gets. The movie is a beginning to end adrenaline rush with pauses in action in between to catch your breath. The best part of the film is that the action pushes the story so nothing ever feels forced and everything that happens feels organic. The story is strong for this type of film with just enough backstory for the title character to get the gist of who he was while leaving you wanting to learn more about who he is. The supporting cast and baddies are very strong as well, especially the character played by Charlize Theron.
All right, you're giving me at least one actress. Is this a sci-fi movie?
Not conventionally, no.
Ooh. Trying to think of Charlize Theron movies. Is this a recent movie? Like since the year 2000?
Yes.
All right, give me my last review.
Charlize Theron is the protagonist of this movie. Her quest for redemption gives Max a chance at the same. This is a 2-hour car chase that's not a bad thing once you witness it. The action is epic, beautiful, and ample. The music is pretty good too. Take a ride and see why this is the best installment yet in this post-apocalyptic joyride.
Oh, man, I feel bad about myself for not getting it before that one. Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes.
All right. I did really like that movie. I don't know why I had forgotten all about it.
I think it's like one of the most underrated movies of 2015 or 2016, whenever it came out. I love that movie.
Yeah, I only watched it the once in the theater, and I do remember really enjoying it. I should watch it again.
You got me on the team because like they're a team, I guess, but not really.
Yeah, I mean when you started with Vroom Vroom and all the testosterone, I jumped immediately to like Fast and the Furious.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
I'm glad I asked that if it was a team, because as soon as you brought up Charlize Theron, I would have probably guessed the Fast 8 since she was in there.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I forgot she was in the newest one. All right, guys, thanks for listening to our episode. We're going to be taking next week off for Christmas, and then we'll be finishing up the year with a year in review episode of all the stuff we checked out in 2018. But first, what are you going to be checking out this week or in the next couple weeks, Christian?
Well, I mean, it's holiday season, so between now and our next episode, at least, especially the next episode where we'll do like a weekly thing, I'm sure I've watched a lot. Aquaman comes out this week, so does Mary Poppins, so does Bumblebee. Bumblebee, by the way, is getting insanely good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes to the point where like I can't believe how good they are. So we'll see about that. And Vice comes out on Christmas Day, which is the like a biopic of Dick Cheney, and that looks really, really good. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm surprised about Bumblebee too. I've been burned by Transformers movies before, so I might hold off on that until it's really verified. This week, I am going to see either Immortal Engines or Fantastic Beasts. I really want to see Aquaman. I think he was one of my favorite parts of Justice League, so yeah, and I like the stuff James Wan did with Fast and Furious, so I'm excited to check this out. I'm hoping it's good. Video game-wise, I am at 85% completion on Spyro 3. I will hopefully be finishing in the next 2 days or so. I just have the flying levels left, really. I'm dreading doing those. I hate them. But that'll be done. I'm getting Smash Brothers for Christmas, so I'm going to be playing that a little bit. And hopefully I'll be able to pick up another game or two or just at least complete some stuff, get my backlog cleared out in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've also got to try and get through the stuff that I want to get through in the next month, because when January 29th comes and Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, I'm not going to be able to focus on much else until I finish it.
All right, guys, thanks for checking out our episode. If you would like to give a suggestion for our Amazon review game, please send us an email at gambots.blog@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us at Gambots Network on Twitter. All right, guys, thanks for listening.
Thank you.